Let's chat with Peter Range, of course, the host of Say Yes to Life, and get the latest in the pro-life world. Hey, good morning, Pete.
Good morning,
How are
Peter.
you?
Hi, Pete.
Hey, good morning, guys. The Browns win. The Browns win. It's
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm still celebrating.
I agree.
No, just kidding. Wanted to talk about something actually very serious today, and invite our listeners. You're always welcome to throw me under the bus. And what I mean by that is sometimes it can be difficult to talk about difficult subjects. And so you could take this segment and send it to a friend or family member and say, hey, I don't agree with everything this guy says, but just listen to it and see what it says. Because today I want to talk to you about in vitro fertilization. President Trump announced his administration is kind of trying to lower the cost so that people can do more IVF, calling it a very pro-life procedure. Well, Bishop Robert Barron and Bishop Daniel Thomas right here in the Diocese of Toledo put out a really good kind of letter about in vitro fertilization. So I want to just look at that letter and then also just to kind of catalog 3 issues with in vitro fertilization so that people understand why this is very problemsome and something that we as Catholics should not be engaging in. So first, to the letter, I think Bishop Robert Barron, again, Bishop Daniel Thomas did a great job talking about, look, every human person is a precious gift with infinite dignity, and people born as a result of IVF have no less dignity than anyone else. So we respect and uphold their dignity as brothers and sisters. They also acknowledge that, people suffer, many couples experiencing infertility, and they have a deep desire to have children. That's both good and admirable. However, IVF leads to people being treated as kind of property, and that can't be the answer to that suffering. Lastly, they talked a little bit about the fact that IVF does kill millions of children who are not selected for a transfer to a womb, who do not survive, and so it's fatally flawed. So they look forward to working forward, they say in the letter, with the administration to expand support for restorative reproductive medicine that can help ethically treat the often overlooked root causes of infertility. So that letter, I think, was really, really well done, kind of hitting the major points there on IVF. And we're going to be talking about this Thursday on Say Yes to Life with Dr. Alicia Thompson, some of those other restorative reproductive technologies that are available to couples so they don't have to turn to IVF. Because we're not just saying no to IVF, but there's a lot of great NAPRO technology, for example, that can be used that is ethically aligned with church teaching. But here are the issues with IVF so people can understand clearly what's going on in the IVF process. There's data from the CDC that looks at the number of people who have used IVF, for example. So in recent years, 1 year cataloged that there was over 413,000 cycles performed on 238,000 patients. And that number is important because even if you use kind of a conservative estimate about how many embryos would have been created during that 400,000 ART cycles, if you will, reproductive cycles using IVF, that puts the number at approximately 4.1 million embryos that were created in just 1 year here in the United States, because most studies that have been done, like in the United Kingdom, for example, have shown that an average of 15 embryos are created during each IVF cycle or process. But if we just use a conservative estimate to say 10 embryos are created, and we look at the live births, which is closer to 200,000 in this process, that means that only 2.3% of all embryos created in the United States on a yearly basis result in a live birth of a baby. So you have millions of babies that are either discarded or frozen here in the United States. So again, 93% of all children are either destroyed or indefinitely frozen, with tiny odds of ever being implanted that we see in most studies if you kind of average this out. So that's first and foremost, just the massive amount of human life that is lost through the IVF process. Secondly, the IVF practice, it's at its heart, it's a eugenics process. Most IVF clinics are going to grade embryos to determine the best embryos that will survive implantation into a woman's uterus. There's no industry standard for grading either. So poor quality embryos are often destroyed, and that's up to the eyes of the beholder, what they think is a strong embryo or what they think is a poor embryo. So often, again, many of these couples decide to freeze embryos for future use. This occurs about 24% of the embryos that are created through the IVF process just ended up getting frozen, which means we have an indefinite number of kids that are just frozen. I mean, we're talking about hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of babies that are frozen in our country right now. The third challenge, ultimately, it treats life as a commodity. And I know the music is going, we could talk about this forever, but given the fact that there's millions of babies that are frozen in this country through IVF, it's not something that we as Catholics should engage in.
Well, and Peter, as we think about it, I mean, look, we should be angry. We should be doing the things that we can to educate people, to let them know about this, all of the things behind it. But we should also just be brokenhearted, right? I mean, crying out to God with sadness for these lost lives.
Yeah,
so
that's
sad.
right. Yeah, the IVF process has taken more lives than Planned Parenthood has, and we have to be awoken to that reality.
Yeah.